and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go.
Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another tremendous installment from very high above all the puerile and insipid forms
How many Wheaties did you eat this morning? You
A
were blowing
lot.
the meters off of this thing.
That's what I do, my friends. Welcome to the program. It's Cowboy State Politics Live. Finally back in the incredible Cowboy State Politics studio. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Tuesday. Finally back. Well, almost everything is back where it belongs.
I was just sitting here thinking, for over a month, every time I move, I've had cameras pointed at me.
Everywhere,
all day long, from early
everywhere
to late
you
evening.
go.
And I thought it's nice to be back in my own studio where there's only about 5 cameras pointed at me. But I don't have to put myself on screen unless I want to.
That's true. It's true. You are in control of the cameras. Well,
we in chaos today because I forgot what all the buttons do.
Yeah, well, the first day back in the studio, we did do a run through here and make sure everything that worked okay. But anyway, welcome back to the program. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for joining us. We've got a big program planned today. Of course, we have Agent 29 back for at least a day. I don't know what he's planning to do tomorrow. He's going on some insignificant program somewhere. But he's not going to be here. So we have him today. We also
Trust me, I'd rather be here with you.
We know. Everybody else would rather you be here, too. We're also going to be joined by James Temple, who is the chairman of the Sheridan County Republican Party. James, welcome to the program.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Agent 29.
Yes, indeed. But we begin this morning with a heartfelt thank you. The Cowboy State Politics podcast has achieved 400,000 downloads. That's a huge number for a Wyoming. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's no other Wyoming-based podcast
Almost
that's done
matched my credit card debt.
Almost. Well, I mean, you are, well, maybe we shouldn't go there yet. I was going to say it is definitely going to match your credit card debt.
Well, I heard
before
that
too
once you
long.
got in the legislature that everything changes and you can get rich.
Well, and if you talk to Eli Bebout or Dennis Beitman, or Dennis Beitman's probably not, in Eli Bebout territory yet.
They don't talk to me.
They don't talk to their constituents either, which is why everybody's all pissed off at them. But anyway, 400,000 downloads. This is a huge number. It's a big day. Well, it actually happened on Saturday, but it's a big day for me. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. Thank you for everything that you've done these last 6 years. And so here's to 400,000 more. So, but anyway, thank you very much. Now, on today's program, there's a couple of pieces out that, the first one is from Dave Simpson, one of the only columnists that I like at the Cowboy State Daily. And it's entitled, "The Most Important Primary Ever." Maybe so. And I quote, "You'd think a bunch of Republicans in a red state like Wyoming could get along. After all, we're always either the best state or the runner-up in giving Donald Trump the highest percentage of votes in presidential elections, coming in at almost 70%. Well, it was actually a little bit north of 70%. The 2000 2020 election was 69.9%. This past one was like 71.2, I think. Anyway, he says, but with our state politicians, almost all Republicans, when it comes to the state legislature, were like the Bickersons, an old radio show about a married couple that argued constantly, not agreeing on much of anything and seldom missing an opportunity to jab a sharp elbow into the flank of some other fellow Republican. Now, you'll recall that that a state Republican Party gathering in Gillette not 1 year ago, it was several years ago, included a fist fight between an allegedly conservative guy and a not so conservative guy. One of them went to the hospital with a broken ankle, broken leg, can't remember. And then the convention continued. The lack of love among conservatives has gotten so bad that earlier this year, prominent Republican Senator Nancy Case, or Kale Case to those of you that live over in Lander, urged Democrats to switch over to the Republican camp so that they could get control of the legislature again. Well, the truth is, my friends, that in the Wyoming legislature, there are 35 Republicans that vote with the Democrats more than 50% of the time. Now, I would argue that if you're claiming to be a Republican and you vote with the Democrats any more than 30% of the time, you're probably not a Republican. And here's the reason I say that, because a lot of the votes in the legislature, everybody agrees on. Yeah, normal everyday things like, should we turn the lights on in the Capitol? I would agree. I was arguing
the
no.
revisers bill, which, by the way, was thoroughly vetted.
Yeah. The revisers bill is just a cleanup bill, and what they do is they go through and clean up spelling errors, and occasionally there's a scrivener error where a statute is misnumbered, and so the revisers bill is just like they sent everything to the copy editor and said fix it all, and that's all that it is. That one, pretty much everybody votes for. It's like, should we keep the prison doors locked? Should we turn the power on at the prison? I might argue maybe no. But there's a lot of things in the legislature where everybody votes on. And so if you are voting with the Democrats more than 30% of the time, there's a major problem. It kind of means that you're not a Republican, or at the very least, you don't follow the Republican Party platform. And there was a lot of that happening in this session. So as I said, there are 35 Republicans in the legislature that vote with the Democrats more than 50% of the time. There's a good portion of them that vote with the Democrats 40% to 45% of the time. So I didn't include those in that number, though I think that the three of us sitting at the table here could agree that if you're voting with the Democrats, 40% of the time, you're really not following the Republican Party platform. So
you may be following 80% of it, maybe. But we've had that discussion before. You really can't break out a portion.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of an all or nothing thing. But we had a whole bunch of them at 70 and 80, even 85%.
Yep, I'm getting there.
And that's
well,
hurry up, would you? I got things to do today.
Yeah, you do. Like push buttons over there. Are you figuring it out? I mean, I know this is all foreign to you, but okay.
This is more like 6ing or 7ing instead of just 4ing.
Anyway, so the truth of the matter is, in the Wyoming legislature, and I think if you watch this program, you've heard me talk about this over and over. As Paul Harvey would say, repetition is effective. Repetition is effective. Repetition is very effective. And so most of the Wyoming legislature should not be considered to be, the super majority Republican, because it's really not. I mean, there's a lot of people that register as Republicans only so that they can win elections. And it has some dramatic effects on it, too. There were so many bills this year that you would think would be a piece of cake to get passed, that all these Republicans wouldn't disagree on it. I don't know, maybe should we have pornography in school libraries? Yeah, we couldn't agree on that one. No, it passed the House of Representatives, lickety-split. Then it went over to the Senate and died a painful, slow death.
And not only can we not get everybody on the same page,
no,
but they're vehement
yes.
in opposition. Why would you want to stop a parent's right to choose. A parent has the right to choose. You go rent porn for your kid, give it to them if you want.
Yeah.
Just don't let anybody know because it's illegal. It's just, it's ridiculous, and common sense don't have much. You're awfully quiet over there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we haven't introduced him yet. He's being
Well, we
respectful.
did.
No, he did right at the beginning.
Kind
so.
of, kind of.
Yeah. And then I blew your choo-choo of thought out of the water.
Well, it's okay. You know, you've had all this pent-up aggression from the
I
legislative session.
I have.
All right, so where I'd like to begin today is just kind of talking about, in general, how did the legislative session go? You know, from the outside, it seemed like a dumpster fire. And, you know, you guys couldn't agree on hardly anything. Anything that you did agree on was a giant fight, even the most, common sense conservative bills. The budget was a huge fight. We ended up, actually pretty close to what the governor wanted. Not exactly, but pretty darn close to it.
Yeah, because you have to fight. You have to get both sides involved. And the Senate, they just rolled over.
Yeah,
and the narrative they're trying to put out there is that we rolled over, but we'll have more to say about that shortly. I'm curious what James thinks.
Yeah, Mr. County Chairman, what did you think of the session? You were down there for quite a bit.
Yeah, I think the word dumpster fire in a lot of ways does describe it. And I think that there was a very deliberate attempt to use the so-called checkgate thing that happened very early on to derail a lot of good bills that should have come onto the floor, that would have had time to have come onto the floor if they wouldn't have spent so much time on something that obviously was not a violation of rule. I mean, it looked bad. The optics weren't great, but everybody was cleared. There was nothing illegal or against rules that occurred. So I think they wasted way too much time.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really, really, really important point, because in the Wyoming legislature, it doesn't matter really if it's a general session or a budget session, but time is limited. And and there are actually time limits for when bills have to come over from the House or get out of committee, or but they do that so that most of the pieces of legislation have a chance to be heard. Well, when you've only got 20 days and you've got roughly 500 to 600 bills, if you're not moving through them pretty quickly, they're not going to get heard. And I don't know how much time was spent on the stupid check incident, but it was a lot. I mean, several hours on multiple days. And the result of it was there was a lot of bills that died that shouldn't have.
Kate, you guys have described it as a dumpster fire, and I'm going to tell you why it was exactly not a dumpster fire.
Okay, well, you're entitled to your own opinion.
And I'm right. I can afford to be narrow-minded. I'm right. It was not a dumpster fire. It was one of the most successful sessions ever. They say, well, you guys can't govern. Well, this is what we did. We got a budget passed, which means you had to have 16 senators that were willing to sign on, so we knew we weren't going to get a whole lot. That's a given from the beginning. So we did everything we could, try to make them fight back. We'll get to that even more later. We also passed a rather decent, what's the word I want, to take care of education.
Oh, yeah, the
recalibration. Recalibration hadn't been done in 15 years by the
I thought it was 20.
And they had control of the whole thing. That was 15 years. And they had control of the place, and they couldn't pass it. We didn't have control. We had them throwing this stupid... I almost said something I shouldn't have.
It's this program. You can say it.
Yeah. The checkgate thing was, they tried to make it a huge distraction. We basically were able to work through that. We got our job done. We in the House heard every single bill that the Senate sent over to us. We discussed it sometimes for hours, and we heard them all. The Senate had time to hear them, but they chose to have pizza instead. You've all seen that. A lot of things that you can point and say, yeah, it was a dumpster fire, it was a mess, but damn it, we got stuff done.
You did in the House, but I think that you need, and here's the thing, right? You have to look at it as two sides of a different coin, because you have the House of Representatives that's run by conservatives. And, conservatives do have a majority, but they don't have 2/3. So some of the stuff that otherwise could have been pushed through, that would have been pushed through in previous sessions because the redcoats were in charge, wasn't able to get done. And I think from the outside, when I say the entire thing was a dumpster fire, I'm looking at it from like the 30,000 foot view and saying, okay, we spent a tremendous amount of time on the budget, and going in, it looked like we were going to have a lean, mean budget. Okay, so the House of Representatives.
From the outside, it may have looked like you were going to have a lean, mean budget, but I got to move myself over a little bit.
Yeah, what are you doing?
But
over
those
there?
of us that were in there, we knew from the beginning it was going to be a scrap to get anything. Because, like I just said, we had to have 16. We had to have 16 votes from the other side, and we knew that was going to be tough to do. So you start out from the Overton window. You start out as well as you can, as strong as you can, from the best position you can.
The art of the deal.
That's where we went. And as for what went on in the Senate, we can't control that.
No, and
Never could.
So when I say I think this session was a dumpster fire, that's the whole thing. And you have to have both bodies working together if everything's going to run smoothly. And the Senate just didn't. To a large degree, they didn't do anything really. And when they did have a chance to get some really good legislation through, and I'm not saying it's good legislation simply because it's conservative. I'm saying common sense things, right? We shouldn't have porn in schools.
Yeah.
There were a lot
Conservative.
there were a lot of election bills that
Conservative.
died. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, we can't even say Republican anymore. We have to say conservative.
Yes, it's true.
So.
It's true. So I'm just saying from the outside, kind of a dumpster fire. And so, yes, the Senate did get 16 votes to pass the budget. But really what they did is they took all of the work that had been done in the Joint Appropriations Committee, and they said, no, we're going to go with the governor's recommendation.
Yeah. And then I want to correct a misnomer real quick while I can. When we came back together and it said, 15 minutes, the House just caved. That is a completely inaccurate narrative. We actually met together for about 4.5 hours the night before, and we went through everything, and we came to agreements. And then the next day at lunchtime, we had the one that was official, but they were filming that. We went through everything that we'd agree on. That took 2 hours. So we had like 6.5 hours to settle out. And we were 170 million apart to start with. We gave up 28 million. They gave up the rest, about 84%. I'd take that any day. I'd say we won. We didn't win like we wanted to, but for the fact that there were really only about 10. If you go look at all the votes, there were only about 10 or 12 solid conservatives that never capitulated.
Yes. The rest of you?
The rest at one point, and it was relentless for 20 plus hours. Every single amendment that came up was critical. If we don't have this, then the huge cracks will appear in the face of the earth, and the sun will turn black, and
we won't have snowplows.
Yeah, no snow plows,
no fire trucks,
no firemen, no police officers, no. We can't even buy ammunition for the police officers. I mean, that's how dire things were. But in the end, we were able to pass a budget, as you say. The recalibration bill, I think, was a win. And we did get one very important thing. Actually, we got a couple of things, but the one that sticks out in my head, as far as the education bill goes, is siloing the money.
Yes, we've been fighting for that for years.
Years.
And you cannot believe the battle. There were amendment after amendment that were brought up. Well, what about you can spend everything but 5%, everything but 4%, everything but 3%, everything but 2%, everything but 1%. Give me a damn break.
Yeah.
You're going to have a silo.
Well, and here's so I don't know if I've explained this enough before on the program, but what we mean by siloing the money is when you have the legislature can't exactly tell the school districts how to spend their money. Now, they do make a recommendation. Hey, you need this many teachers, you need this many custodians, you need this many football pads or whatever. So they do make a recommendation. But when that money goes to the school district, well, then they can pretty much do whatever they want, except this time around. Monies that are meant to go to the classroom have to stay in the classroom. Now, this is the argument that the teachers union and school districts have been making for a long time. You're not paying your teachers enough. We can't hire good teachers.
That's why we got sued.
Yeah, that's exactly why the legislature got sued. And in the end, what school districts would do is take the money meant for teachers and spend it elsewhere. I don't know if it was scoreboards for the football field or cleats for the baseball team, but they spend it elsewhere.
So last year we were getting sued. We knew it. And so we set aside what would be an 8.5% raise to go to all the school districts, to go to the teachers. One school district did it. We've had this discussion several times. Yeah. And the others didn't. Many of them didn't do anything at all. And that's why when it came down to, if we're going to get sued for paying the teachers, we're going to pay the teachers.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, Ken, your argument, I think it works perfectly. You should, if you run into any member of your school board, you should walk up to them and say, okay, so let's say you pay your teachers $100,000 a year. By the way, that's pretty close to the average if you include all the benefits and everything. That's what the Speaker of the House
it's about a 60-40 split, and if they clear 60,000, it costs you 100.
Right. So around 100, all told, and ask them how big the class size is, and it'll be around 20, but just use round numbers and say, all right, so let's say your class is 20. At over $20,000 a student, which we do pay more than that for every student in Wyoming education, that means that five of those kids pay for that teacher. Where's the money for the other 15? Where is that money? Because it's a tremendous amount for every classroom full of kids. Well, the answer to that is in administration, because schools don't pay for buildings. They don't pay for transportation. Well, they do up on the front end, but they get reimbursed by the state. And so the question is, where does all of our money go? Now, the narrative we've been told for the longest time is that Wyoming just doesn't pay their teachers enough. Bull crap. The legislature provides that money to the school district, and it is the individual school districts that are not paying their teachers enough. Well, now that argument is out the window because money meant for the classroom stays in the classroom. All right, so I've babbled on long enough about this. Let's get your perspective. Oh, stop. So let's get your perspective, James. Talk to us about your view of the legislature, what happened with legislation, what it looked from your position, what the party was telling you. Talk to us about it.
Absolutely. It is different. And I do agree with Ken. There are different perspectives based on what you're looking at, what you're listening to in the legislature. You can't be everywhere at once. When you go down to Cheyenne, I did spend a good amount of time in the House, spent a couple of days listening to the Senate, but most of my time I spent listening to the House. And I do want to give Ken kudos. Joint Appropriations did a lot of hard work even leading up to the legislative session this time. And I do think they accomplished a lot of good goals. I do think it's probably one of the better budgets that we've seen in quite some time. But there's still work to be done. I mean, Ken knows that, but you can't just go in and have all of your ideas go through. But I do think a lot of success came from that part. When I say dumpster fire, it's not even necessarily the budget that concerns me so much. I spent a lot of time listening to Senate committees on House Bill 8, House Bill 9, House Bill 10, all dealing with grooming of children, pornography in the libraries, things like that. 8 and 9 went through with no problem. They passed committee, and they had their media there, of course, to cover it because you had some high-profile cases in the state. The young lady that was stalked by the grown adult for so long. And then you also had a young man that was being stalked by a grown woman through inappropriate pictures and grooming on cell phone and media. So House Bill 8 and 9 had no problem getting passed. What really shocked me was House Bill 10. And that wasn't even saying get rid of all of the books in the library that have to do with pornography. That was just saying make it so that juveniles have no way to access it. Take the appropriate measures. You can keep it, but keep it out of the children's hands. Do what you need to do. And it really shocked me that all of a sudden out of that, people were saying book burning and phrases like
books.
that. And it's like, No, hold on. There's a difference between taking away your right to view whatever material it is that you want to view versus a child who could accidentally pick up the wrong book, or children that want to seek that out, but they're underage and they shouldn't have access to it to start with. That one really shocked me. And because I figured with 8 and 9, hey, we're on a good track here. We've got some grooming law changes now that show intent to groom these children. We've got the stalking in place now, which are all things we absolutely needed. But then you get to the libraries, and for some reason, nobody wants to give an inch on that measure to keep this vile material out of these kids' hands. I mean, we have it in just about every county.
Well, it's a deeper cultural problem because we have one whole side of the political spectrum that really does think that any material is appropriate for any age.
Yeah.
And I mean, I for the life of me, I don't quite understand why. I mean, I understand what they're doing. That is to desensitize a kid so that everything is appropriate.
Right.
And if you can, and the best way I heard it described to me is that if you can convince a kid to question even the most essential of truths. So, for example, you have a mommy and a daddy. Okay, every single person that walks the face of the earth right now has had a mother and a father.
Right.
I mean, that's biology, right? That's how things work.
Right.
But if you can get a kid to question, well, maybe men can get pregnant, or maybe I don't need a mommy and a dad. If you can get that question in their head, well, what else can you get them to question?
Exactly. And you're taking minds that don't have the maturity or the education yet to discern. That's the difference. They don't discern between fantasy and reality with a lot of these things. It takes them much longer nowadays to mature mentally and emotionally than it did 100 years ago.
Guess who used that argument?
Who?
They used that argument against us with 18-year-olds being able to concealed carry.
Yes.
They turned around and said, well, the brain, Ken Chestick, the brain of the 18-year-old is not yet formed, and so we shouldn't be allowing them to carry until we go to war.
Yeah, until we go to war, then it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between an 18-year-old and a 10-year-old, and that's the difference I'm talking about.
I get that.
I actually do agree that if you're 18 and you can fight for your country, well, then you should probably be able to have a beer and carry a gun.
I agree. Yeah.
And it appalls me that there's such a difference in treatment there. The other one that really disappointed me was SEPA.
Yeah,
the amendments that they wanted to put into SEPA, and I read through it several times, just to make sure I was grasping it correctly, and had the privilege of speaking to a couple of senators about it, and yet all of our law enforcement showed up in opposition to it.
Yeah,
and that was very concerning.
And this just for a couple of seconds, then we're going to take a break. The biggest part of that disappointed me out of everything is you had all 23 sheriffs first that obviously hadn't read the bill. It's very clear because had they read the bill, there wouldn't have been that opposition.
Right.
Second, that bill's about accountability.
Yes.
Now, if a law enforcement officer follows the law, they have absolutely nothing to worry about. Not a darn thing. And yet all 23 sheriffs were in there saying, oh, no, this is going to destroy law enforcement. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, it is. It was absolutely disappointing. All right, so let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we're going to have a couple of big announcements. So hit it, Ken, and we'll be back in a minute. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Tuesday. I'm David Iverson, the voice on Wyoming's right. Welcome back to the program. So, James, now I understand that you've got a bit of announcement to give us here.
Yeah, I do. Several months ago, I was really looking at the state and kind of where we're going. And of course, anybody that knows me know that I'm pretty far right.
No, you're to my left.
Well, I can't help that. You do have a bad side, evidently. So. And, there's the old expression, if you're going to complain about it, then get in the fight. Put up or shut up. And I've been trying to do that as the chair of the party. I think we've been taking the party in Sheridan in a better direction and a good direction. But I want to do more than just that. And I'm in a position right now where I think I need to start working more at the state level. So I have decided to run for the legislature in House District 29.
All right, great. Well, so I assume that you've got everything ready to go. How are you going to start campaigning?
Well, right now we're still working on getting signage and everything. I will eventually have a web page up, probably towards the end of this week, hopefully. And I will be doing a lot of door-to-door in the community and just trying to meet with business owners and just our regular constituents here in Sheridan and drum up as much support as possible. I am absolutely 100% pro-life. I am absolutely 100% for Second Amendment rights, for free speech. There are a lot of things that I stand for that you're not going to sway me on, but I also do believe that even if we have differences, we should be able to sit down and have a communication and a dialogue about that, find the areas we have in common, and at least work together in those areas to move forward on certain things. And I think that's one of the biggest problems in the party right now is if I don't agree with you 100%, then you write me off or vice versa, and that happens quite a bit in the political world. And, we need to still be able to come to the table to work for the good of our actual constituents, the people that voted them in, instead of worrying about whether we're getting our way or not.
Well, and we started out the program talking about this past legislative session, and I think you're absolutely right that I think the biggest problem we have is that we can't seem to sit down and talk to each other.
Yeah.
That we can't have an important piece of legislation and say, all right, we think it ought to be this way. Other body, Senate, I'm sure you have different ideas about it. So let's sit down and talk about it. We don't do that anymore.
Right.
There were so many bills that hit file 13 that I think were important. I think that the majority of conservatives in the House obviously thought were important, but we can't have that conversation. And I think you and I have, here in Sheridan, have made an attempt a pretty solid attempt to sit down with the other side and just listen.
Well, we have, and I've been criticized for doing that by certain people actually on the far right. When did we stop being Republicans in America? When did Americans stop being the kind of Republicans that valued due process, that valued communication, that valued treating each other with honor and respect, even if we disagreed? And we've seen that go out the window nationally, locally, just about everywhere in the country now. And we do need to get back to that. And I'm not talking big tent politics, but I am talking that, we do have more moderate Republicans. We do have more far right-leaning Republicans. And the truth is, as you said it earlier, we have just flat Democrats that are claiming to be Republicans. And I think we need to weed that faction out. But the moderates, they have value. They have an opinion. And they may not agree with all 23 planks of the platform, which personally I do.
I don't see how you couldn't.
Exactly. But if they're where they're at because they were voted in, then they have to have some redeeming quality that we can communicate on and agree on something without bending or compromising principle.
All right. So just about every politician that I know has some things that they're running on. What are some things that you want to, I mean, you've mentioned a couple of them, but what are some of the things that you want to go to Cheyenne and change? What do you want to work on?
So number one would be basically what we were just talking about. And it's not something necessarily constituent based, but it's the precept to actually going in is we need to open up the communication. We need to be able to work together more. We have a great group of legislators in the House, a core group, because we have the majority at this time, who are really working hard to do that, and they're getting so much opposition in the way of that from other people that claim to be Republicans. That has to stop. But as far as what I would like to do for Sheridan and for the state, we need to keep pushing on our budget, of course. We need to start reducing spending even more. It should be limited government. Absolutely. We need to continue to work on tax relief. And it's not our job to hold people's hands in every aspect of life. That's what the Constitution was about. That's why we have the rights and liberty that we do. I do want to continue to push and protect Second Amendment rights. That is a huge issue here. Free speech has been something that I have seen attacked even by the Republican Party in the State Central Committee.
Recently.
Which I'm a part of.
Like this weekend.
Yes, exactly. And different counties. GOPs that have infringed upon this, and they're really starting to get the mindset that the Democrats had under Biden of if we can censor you, then we can control the game, and we cannot allow Wyoming to be that in the Republican Party. First Amendment is one of the biggest things where I see infringements that maybe a lot of people aren't noticing. I know you notice it because that's what your program's
kind of what
about. Yeah. Judiciary is something that's very near and dear to my heart. The laws,
well, you're in law enforcement, right?
Exactly. So for me, anything dealing with, like I was talking about, the bills for the kids, protection of our kids in Wyoming, very important to me to continue to pursue that, to continue to get the filth out of the places that the filth doesn't belong, and to be able to prosecute these people that are everything from sex trafficking, which people don't want to admit happens and goes through Wyoming all the time, to even the perverts that want to groom the children for whatever reason that they want to do that, and we're not going to get too explicit with it. So I want to see stiffer penalties for things of that nature. And, those are the things that are near and dear to my heart. When we talk about budget, taxes, Second Amendment, First Amendment, and then, of course, our kids. Schools are in that mix as well because of the kids. I can't just pick one thing, but, yeah.
Well, it's still early. So House 29, it's an interesting district.
What? What did you just say?
I said House 29.
I know the representative.
You said you're running
there.
for 29?
Well, yeah.
That's my seat.
Well, not for long.
What am I supposed to do?
I don't know. Find something else to run for.
Go
Ken.
fishing. I don't know. So what are you going to do, Ken? Now that you're going to be out of a job in the House. Oh, looky there.
I'll think of something. I think of something. That's at kenpendergraph.com.
Yeah, that's quite a sharp
So I
website.
won't show you the rest of it because you have to go there and find it yourself. But yeah, Bo has vacated his seat, and they have gone in and disinfected the place and allow me allow me to come back. And I think we were talking about the dysfunction between the House and the Senate, and I think that's one of my focuses. We've never had a good relationship between the two bodies
No.
since I've been there. Chip has already announced that he's going to run, and which meant that Augie had to come back out of retirement and say, I ain't going to quit because I can't let this guy secede me.
That's funny stuff.
So they're bringing that on. There are several others, and you'll be hearing a lot about those over the coming days. But if we could move 5 or 6 of us over there to the Senate and still hold the majority in the House,
Yeah.
and I put it in, my seat is in very capable hands with James, and I appreciate you for being willing to do that, because I would not have gone this route without having somebody that I knew I could trust, back in my seat. It's very important that we hold that. But we have to begin to get this mentality of what is a conservative, what is the truth, and if we can't do that, there's not a lot of hope. And I do have a lot of hope. I hope that I only have to spend 4 years there and then I can go fish.
Well, at least you won't have to run, in 2 more years. So,
That is true. That thought has crossed my mind.
All right, so Ken, give me your elevator pitch. Why would you want to go over to that dumpster fire that we call the Senate?
I don't want to go over there. And I think that those of us, the last few weeks of session, a lot of us got together and talked about what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And many of us felt like if we had our druthers, we'd just be done, because this is grueling. And it looks like a dumpster fire from the outside.
Certainly.
Down there on the floor, it is exhausting. And if you'd asked me in the middle of the budget process if I was going to come back, said, no, I'm done. But you realize that people have spent years investing in getting you established, and it does take several years to be able to understand how Cheyenne works, how to get things done, who does what. That's just the way it is. And you get to the point where you might actually start to be effective, and I felt like the last year especially I've been very effective. Now's an opportunity to actually try to make the differences that I've tried to make. I'm still running on the same things. I don't want to see we've been trying to get rid of property tax, and that's all well and good, but if you cut the revenue, you got to cut the spending. And we can get half of it barely. We can cut the revenue a little bit. We'll see what the people do when the people's initiative comes. But if the people's initiative comes through,
I think
we're
it's gonna
going
pass.
to have to cut.
yeah.
That's all there is to it. And there is not a will there to do that, even though there very well should be. And I won't get into all the numbers, but there's a lot left undone. So that's not really the elevator speech, but
Well, one of the biggest problems that I see in the Senate, I mean, there's quite a few of them, but one of them is that you're not talking about a body that is conservative in the least. I mean, there are a couple of really
currently.
conservative people there that, man, they just got pounded on during the session over and over. But the majority of the Wyoming Senate is very much to the left. And
yeah.
I think if you look at their performance over the over the month of February, I mean, that's glaringly clear.
Yeah.
let's go back to that argument about, well, you guys just rolled over to the Senate on the budget.
Okay.
I want you to go back 2 years. We were $1.1 billion apart.
Yes.
The House was way... Long story short, the Senate rolled over in very short order and came and met the House where the House was. They were not conservative. We have a tremendous amount of work left to do, and the people are getting pretty impatient. And
Well,
So
and
we've
I
gotta
think
go to work.
I think another point that I don't want to get lost is there were a lot of things going on in the Senate that, frankly, I think if most Wyoming citizens were there and they saw it with their own eyes, they would be absolutely appalled. One good example is the last day for bills to come out of committee of the whole. The House was working diligently. In fact, you guys worked late into the night.
Yep.
I say late, but it was like 8 or 9 o'clock, I think.
Is that all it was?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it felt like forever for you.
It did. But we heard every single bill.
Every bill.
Now, there were a couple of them toward the very end that we went through pretty quickly because they were duplicates of another bill or
Right.
something like that, and we flushed a few of those. But yeah, we heard every bill that the Senate put out.
The Senate, on the last day of committee of the whole, and they had a long list of bills that hadn't been heard yet. They took numerous breaks. I remember sitting in the gallery, and I think it started at like 2 o'clock. And, we're watching what's happening down
They
on the
didn't
floor.
start that day until noon.
Yeah. So good point. So they got started at noon, and then by 2:30, I think, I'm watching what's happening in the Senate on my iPad, and here comes the screen. The House will stand in recess till the sound of the gavel, and that lasted until like 4:30, and then they were in session for a little bit, and then it came back on, and then it wasn't that long after I started seeing senators come in the House, and they were done for the day.
So one of the things you didn't see was while the Senate was on break, I had to go down and see, because we were working on a couple things, I had to go down and see some people in the Senate. And I ran into Tara. And Tara pulled me aside, and she was just really mad. And she says, "You've got to get in there and get control of your people. You're not going to have enough time to get through all these bills." And I said, "There's somebody in your chamber just read through the reviser's bill." She said, "Well, he was just trying to be funny." Okay, it's not funny when we have critical bills that are critical to us, and you're not even going to hear them. And she got rather upset, and she went back, and they gavelled out.
Yeah. I mean, and it was incredible the lack of work that happened in the Wyoming Senate. And again, go back to what I said earlier, that there's a compressed time frame. There's not a lot of time to get, really anything done. General session's 2 months long. This one, it's only a month. And there wasn't any decrease in the amount of bills that were proposed. And, most of the time the Senate was, screwing around.
If you go to a committee, and James, thank you for mentioning this earlier, how hard appropriations works. But if you go to a typical committee and they're going to hear a bill, they'll get through one, maybe two in a lunch hour, in a 2-hour period. We would often get through 4, 5, maybe 6. The reason was when we knew we were going to hear that bill, we went to work on it right away.
Yeah.
By the time it actually got to committee, we had read the bill, we understood what was going through, we talked to people on both sides of the issue. Yes, we did. And we had spoken to each other. Where are you at on this? What are we going to do? Can we amend this? That sort of thing. And we worked efficiently and we worked hard. So what you see in front of the screen is literally only the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Well, and it's a fascinating thing because when you're sitting in the gallery, I mean, you only see it from, literally a bird's eye view, and you can only kind of conjecture what's happening on the floor. Sure, you can listen to the debate and you hear the arguments that are made. But, I'm always watching the back door and seeing who's coming and going out of the chamber. And when you see a whole bunch of senators start coming back and forth, well, that they're not in session. That they're not working.
Right.
And, they're just coming over to see what you guys are doing. And that happens so many times. And so I think that and then if you add on top of it, and this is the part that really infuriated me, for I don't know how many days we talked about the dumb check incident in the House of Representatives. Well, the whole time they had a lobbyist down on the floor perhaps behind the bar, but in the chamber. They had a lobbyist in the chamber almost the entire session. And that's absolutely, if you go to the lobbyist handbook, I haven't looked at the rules, but I'm sure there's a rule in there that says you can't have lobbyists on the floor. You had that same lobbyist presenting bills in committee, advocating for bills, saying, I work for this organization and this organization.
Yeah.
And he was allowed access to the Senate chamber. So while all of this was happening over in the House, you had pretty much, in a way, The same thing happening over in the Senate. And I mean, there's just a lot of dysfunction that happens over there. And so, every time I hear of somebody, a good solid conservative running for the Senate, I'm pretty happy about it, right? Chip Nyman said he's running for the Senate. Ken, you just have announced. I haven't heard of too many more people from the House of Representatives that are going to move over, but I'm sure there'll be a few.
Yeah, we're all being pretty cautious, obviously, because we want to make certain that we don't abandon that. But there's a lot of conversations. There's also some other announcements out there that bear repeating. Jeanette Ward.
You keep putting that up there.
Yeah, I hate it when that happens. That's a good picture. Which, by the way, Albany County, the Democrats down there are using that photograph for their fundraising because I am an FCE. I'm a Freedom Caucus extremist.
Well, you are something.
And I guess, if you listen to Barry Goldwater, which I did, that means I'm right where I need to be.
Exactly.
And James, you are too. I can't wait to see you down there. I left you a nice, comfortable seat. I was hardly ever in it.
Every time I see you, you were standing up and moving around. So.
I was on the floor. I learned from Steve Harshman that it takes a lot of coaching. And I won't say that well, just take that for what it's worth.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, I want to talk about endorsements. There's been a lot of those happening recently. Some of them good, some of them interesting. But we'll talk about it when we come back. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals stalking the big, gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. Finally back in the big Cowboy State Politics studio. Welcome to the program, my friends, or welcome back to the program. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for paying attention to the open range record. There's a couple of great stories there that are really irritating Elizabeth Bingham, and I can't tell you how happy I am about that. But there's a couple of good stories on there. I'll be publishing some more today, so thanks for paying attention to that.
At least you picked a decent picture.
Yeah, well, I tried to find one that was not so flattering, but I do try to be nice. I mean, I don't have, a lot of people say I don't. But anyway, so one of the things that's been always happens right after the session is everybody is endorsing everyone. And there have been some very, very, very interesting endorsements in the governor's race. It would seem that everybody has forgotten how unconservative Megan Degenfelder actually is.
Yeah.
And, I challenge anybody to tell me one conservative thing that she's got accomplished. Now, perhaps you could say, well, she went and, went to D.C. and, met with Trump. Well, okay, great. But what did we actually get accomplished? I mean, what's the pedigree there? What's the resume look like? Well, there isn't one. And in fact, I think if you look at the fundraising from Megan Degenfelder, she's not getting money from conservative folks. I think if you look at the endorsements, those are interesting. Deemer True, Eli Bebout, well, those are not people that I would want on my side. And then there's some conservatives.
If Deemer True endorsed me, or he was endorsing the same candidate as myself, I think I would have to go back and re-examine what I'm looking at.
Yeah, but the truth is, in the governor's race, we have Eric Barlow, who spent 85% of his time voting with Democrats in his entire legislative career. You've got Megan Degenfelder, who she's not a conservative, and I think you can go listen to the interview that I did with her. She didn't really answer any of the questions. Megan, if you're listening, you're welcome back on the program to clear all that up. But right now, I don't really see a whole lot of conservatism coming from your direction.
Look at the slip board votes.
Yeah, the slip board votes almost right in line with Governor Gordon.
Yep.
And, in that case, there's only one conservative out of our top 5 legislators who really, talked the talk and walked the walk.
Oh, Chuck, I am, by the way, I think that's getting announced today, too, that I am endorsing Chuck Gray
Okay.
for Congress.
Excellent.
And there will probably be a meme, if it isn't already, be a meme up with a bad picture of me. There's very few good pictures, but
Now, there is another guy in the governor's race, and that's Brent Bean.
yes.
And now, Brent he's in my mind, he's the only conservative in the race right now.
So, if I may, because I've known Brent for quite a while. I remember when he first started speaking up several years ago, about 6-7 years ago, at Sheridan County GOP events. It was a little hard to listen to because he wasn't really a very polished speaker, and he's been doing a lot of work. And
He's
I
all over
appreciate
the
that.
place.
He's going all over the state. He's out there day after day after day, beating the weeds, doing the job. He led the Citizens Initiative along with Cheryl Aguiar, and hi Cheryl, and some others out there that I know worked very hard, not just to get things done for Wyoming because they felt like the legislature was failing, but to go out and stay in front of the people and keep the, build the name recognition, build that trust. And I would be remiss if I didn't admit that there aren't some issues in my mind with Brent and how he does things. He's kind of a maverick. He doesn't necessarily listen to what conventional wisdom is or what everybody else says. But when I look at that, I think, you know what, those weaknesses are actually his strength. We need somebody who has a solid titanium backbone, who knows exactly what he believes and why. And no, I'm not describing myself this time, although I am.
All right.
But of course,
Well, of course you are.
but of course I am. No, but seriously, he's not going to be swayed by what a bunch of people say or try to turn him. And so he has my full endorsement.
Excellent.
I've known him for several years. He could be frustrating, but man, that's what we need, because anything less will get run over. And if you put Megan up there, and Megan, I love you, but you wouldn't stand up to the slip board. You're not going to stand up to what we need there. When we send over an initiative that says we want to cut 15% out of our next budget, and don't go print that and say this is what our
That's
goal
going to be
is.
on the open range
I
record
know.
later.
Right.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But let's
Ted
say we
Pendergraft says.
let's say we did that, and we actually, because we have to cut, and I don't want to get into the red jackets now, but we have to do some cutting. And when we send it to Megan, it's not going to happen. We
No.
send it to Barlow, he's going to veto everything, and we're going to be scrapping.
He'll do the same thing he
only
did
person
in the
that will
House.
say, "Yeah, I'll see your 15 and raise you 5%." That's what we need.
Well, speaking of him, let's talk to him.
Oh no.
Oh, no. Welcome to the program, Mr. Brent Bean. How are you? Uh-oh. Here we go. All right, Brent, how are you this morning?
Good, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm all right, man. Where are you at right now?
Good. I'm down in Casper. Down in Casper here with Gary and Max Jacobson down here. We're sitting here just ready to do a tour around the town in honor of her mom's birthday and of course St. Patty's Day.
All right, great. Well, I assume that you heard Agent 29, Representative Ken Pendergraft, endorse you.
I did. Agent 29. Yeah.
Hey. With any luck at all.
Ken's the man.
With any luck at all, I'll get to be Agent 21.
Yeah.
There's a new Agent 29 in the wings.
All right, Brent. So talk to me. We just finished the legislative session. What do you think? What changes do you want to see happen? Just talk to us.
Well, I tell you what. Overall, quite frankly, I'm not too thrilled. I think when it came down to taxes, when it came down to elections, a lot more work needs to be done. I was particularly not happy with Senate File. I think it was 116 that addressed the storm runoff taxes that are down in Laramie and in Cheyenne. And by statute, anytime a municipality, as you guys know, wants to impose, they call it a fee, but it's really a tax.
Right. All fees are
a
taxes.
fee on the folks. It has to go. That's right. It has to go before a vote. And of course, these were implemented in Laramie and Cheyenne without going to a vote. So that bill, I think it was Senator Crum that put out there, even though it's by statute, they're supposed to do this by statute. It was basically going to be one of those things that would make it mandatory across the state. And there was actually a grandfather clause in there for any other municipality around the state that's already implemented something like that. That once the debt's paid off, then they had to go back, before the folks for an election. And we saw this, made it through the third reading, good to go, and then it was reconsidered, and then it was voted down. The whole thing on that is we're starting to see government, and not starting, it's been going on, but we're really seeing all these taxes, everything is about trying to squeeze more and more money out of the taxpayer. And so again, that was just one of them, just simply because it is voter suppression. And but again, this needs to be held at the municipality level, and these municipality leaders, whether they're city council members, mayors, or whatever they are, if they're not adhering to statute, then of course, they need to be fired all the way across the board. And this is all across the state, and this kind of stuff that's going on. If they're not upholding and standing up for the taxpayer, then they need to be voted out next, in 2026. And then elections, that to me is one of the my most paramount issues there, and just visibility in elections. And really, we really haven't audited any of our elections. I mean, the full-blown audit since we've been a state.
Hold on a minute. They did pass a hand count bill. I mean, it's not to the extent that I would go to, but what do you think of that one?
Right. Well, it's getting there. It's starting to get there. Here's as I've been traveling all over the state the last couple of years talking elections, and there's two paths here, right? There's voter integrity, and which the Secretary of State has been really staunch on, and then there's election integrity, and I kind of equate it to a rudimentary parallel here to our immigration system, right? So we can get rid of all the illegals, but if we don't fix the immigration system, they're just going to come back, and that's very similar, I think, in a way, to elections. We can get voter ID, we can get all this stuff done, but if we don't fix the elections process, we're still going to have problems. And they're complementary efforts here. Don't get me wrong here. I think what's gone on with voter integrity, I think, is good, but I think it lacks. Where we lack here is in election integrity and being able to, no kidding, do the full blown audit. And at least have the ability to audit up to 100% as we need to. And I do believe, as I travel around the state, the one thing I've seen is that, and unfortunately, I didn't keep statistics with this, but the number one reason, the presiding reason that folks who used to vote no longer vote is because they don't trust the system or the machines. And those who still do vote, they do it out of their patriotic duty, but they don't trust the machines. That's what they call them, the machines. And we're talking, ES&S, the system that we use right now. And between ES&S and Dominion, that accounts for over 80% of the cast paper ballots, of the tabulation of those cast paper ballots. And we know that they're corruptible. We know that. We don't know if that's happening here simply because, we can't get through the logic and accuracy tests to test them, and we have serialization problems. And because we don't audit, we don't know if the output is actually matching the input. And we always hear the argument that, every vote has to count, and that's true. But, I take it one step further, that every vote needs to count for the intended recipient, and that's what we're really looking for here.
Well, let me,
and
hold on.
ultimately,
not to interrupt you, but so
Sure.
Wyoming has a law that we have to use machines. So
That's right.
And I'm just playing devil's advocate with you here. But
Sure.
wouldn't the first step be to get changes made at the legislature before we do anything else? Because if you have to use the machines, then the argument of whether or not the machines work is kind of secondary. So wouldn't we want to start at the legislature?
Well, absolutely, and of course the people never had any say in bringing these machines in. This all stemmed, as you know, from the 2000 election, Help America Vote Act, which came in shortly after that, and all the way through. And of course, we never had any say in the systems we're using right now. So of course, it all has to happen legislatively. We need to change the laws, and that's why I've been part of and helped draft multiple bills to do this, going down, to target how we do this. And of course, what we have, I think, is the parochialism that we have, this incrementalism that we have in our legislature that's being predominantly run by the rhinos on the left, is that, we can't do this anymore. We got to go in and make these major muscle movement or stock market correction changes in our laws to make this work. But you're absolutely right. We need to change the laws. And we know definitively, though, once we got all the data last May, a year ago May, after the 2024 election, that we found that not a single county prior to the primary passed the logic and accuracy test of the ES&S system. But the primary is still certified.
Okay, hold on, Brent. I just so happens I have a guy here that knows a little bit about this. I don't know if you've met him, but James Temple he was the election supervisor in Sheridan. He's got a question for you.
Yeah, so
Sure.
I just want to be careful there, Brent, and let me first say I appreciate you. I really appreciate the efforts you're putting into your race. I voted for you in 2022, by the way, and the way things
thanks.
are going right now, I'm planning on doing that again here in 26. However, when it comes to the logic and accuracy test with the machines in Sheridan County, what initially happened, and it happened statewide. And you can actually
That's
ask
right.
Secretary Gray about this. He and I have a very good relationship. The initial test, what had happened is in statute, there's a gray area that determines as long as the results match what the test deck is, and of course there's tons of controls, then you're good to go. Well, Secretary Gray, in reading statute, said, well, I do not want a test deck to show identical number of votes for two different candidates, because then how do we know if the machine is picking Mark Jennings versus Barry Crago if each of them have one vote on a ballot in the test deck? And we don't, because it's just telling us the number of votes. So then what Secretary Gray did was he came out and said, I want anybody that has any duplicate results to please run a different test with a new test deck. Well, I only had one race that did that, and it did. It happened to be the Jennings-Crago race. And because of that, I automatically contacted ES&S. We had a brand new test deck generated in order to not have any duplicate number of votes for candidates. So every candidate countywide would receive a different number of votes, so we knew exactly what the machine was doing. And when we ran that second test, the first test, I had roughly 500 ballots in a test deck to run through all the machines. The second one, because we had to account for one race, actually changed my number to 1,260 ballots to run a test deck in that. So there was a lot of effort into it. And the second time we ran it, which was literally the Saturday before the primary, the machines did pass, all 29 of them passed with flying colors. So I understand what you're saying, and I'm not necessarily pro-machine or pro-can count, either one. But in this argument, when we're talking about these things, I want to make sure that the clerks that did retest and got the right results as a result of Secretary Gray's request get credit for that, because I know that my test passed. And I also know that it then passed again for the general election. I do know there were a couple of counties that actually refused to do it. And in my mind, that's just ludicrous. If your Secretary of State, who's the chief election official for the state, asks you to do it, then do it. But I just want to make sure that we're getting the whole truth out there with that. And I know that you not being inside of the elections portal kind of puts you at a disadvantage. However, I am here. Anytime you want to ask me something to just get the objective answer or to get some insight on it, I would be glad to assist you in any way, Brent.
Well, I think you're right, though, Brent.
No, absolutely.
That we have.
Yeah. Well, if I can just.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I can comment on that. But what is they're supposed to pass within a certain time prior to the election, right? It's the 13 or 14, whatever it is, and I don't have the statute sitting in front of me, prior to the election. And that's where I'm going with this, because if there is an issue, and none of us are gunning for the clerks. It's the way everything's set up right now that really, I mean, the clerks have to be an expert, an absolute expert in ES&S and how to test these things and everything else. We've never been gunning for the clerks. Our whole thing is we want to make it's the government's job to gain or regain the trust of the citizenry, not the other way around. And what I've seen, again, being all over this state in every single county, teaching folks on hand count. Of course, it's one thing to identify a problem and frame the problem, and because that's the only way you can solve it. And the other is to, the complement to that is to provide a solution. And of course, that's what we've done. We've trained, I don't know how many people around the state on a particular method to hand count. And once they're done, and these are typically 3-hour sessions that we've been doing all over the state. I haven't done them here I think we stopped doing this probably, or I did anyway, in November, just simply because I was gearing up for this campaign again. But that is, there is a trust level thing here. But we've gone through the statute. I look at Title 22, and between Title 39, which is our tax code, and Title 22, which are two of the top doggone statutes that, if we have to hold over for a special session or whatever is required to rewrite these things in favor of the voter and in favor of the taxpayer, we've got to do. But, elections, and you're right. I mean, elections govern everything, right? Because, really the people who make the laws, they're really the ones who should be writing the bills, not the lobbyists. But these are the guys we're voting for, all the way up, as you guys know, from city council all the way up to the top 5. And people have to have trust in the system, and that's what's missing around the state. And that's the qualitative that really the only way to fix that is to no kidding somehow get this to where it's back in favor of the folks, to where they can actually trust the system. And that's why we have to be able to audit these, hand audit these things up to 100%, if it comes back to it. But I'm tracking, and I'm familiar with what was going on in Sheridan County, and very familiar with what was going on in all the counties. But when you see, I guess, when you look at Weston in particular, and then, we saw the issues down in Laramie County, and when there's nothing done, when no discipline is really taken there, when folks still have their jobs, then when people around the state see that, they're like, well, wait a minute. What happened to equal application of the law? So, I mean, it's a bigger issue,
Yeah.
Right. It's a bigger issue. And
I got to run here pretty quick, but why don't you go ahead and tell my viewers where you're going to be at if they want to talk to you in person?
Oh, absolutely. Well, today I'm down in Casper. We're going to be tooling around all the state doing, around the city, just meeting a bunch of businesses for St. Patrick's Day. And then tomorrow I'll be heading up to Sheridan, and then I'll be in Buffalo all day on the night. Got several things going. They can always look up my website, brentbn.com, go to the calendar. That's where I'll be. And I tell you, the interaction, the comments, just these conversations I've had with so many people around the state. In fact, I was just down in Carbon County for the last several days, hitting everything from Baggs to Elk Mound to Rollins, all the small towns. And it's been great because a lot of folks aren't listening to them,
Right.
and they do feel that their voice isn't being heard. So yeah, I'll be over in Buffalo for the next couple of days, starting
All right, hit me
on the 19th.
hit me up when you're here, and we'll sit down in the studio. Thanks for calling, Brent.
Will
We
do.
got to run, man.
Yeah, thanks, David. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate it, brother. Thanks, Jim.
All right, we'll be back in just a second. Cowboy State Politics Live. Back in a bit. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics Podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. It's Tuesday. I'm David Iverson, documented to be almost always right 99% of the time. A record that I really wish some other people would at least aspire to. I mean, just give it a try every once in a while. But the problem is they don't. In fact, most of what you see from the Wyoming media is opinion that is wrapped up as news. And so that, my friends, is why Cowboy State Politics exists, and it's why we're doing this show. And thank you very much for watching, for paying attention. So I'm joined by James Temple this morning. Of course, we got Agent 29, and we just had gubernatorial candidate Brent Bean on the show. He's going to be in Buffalo and Sheridan for the next couple of days. So if you see him around, stop and talk to him. Ask him the hard questions. So we mentioned earlier.
What's the square root of 96?
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
Oh, yes. What is your favorite color?
Yes. I have
Clear.
So, I gotta tell you the story, guys. So Ken is down on the floor, and I don't remember what the bill was. But, I mean, it was nauseatingly
Not like
boring.
Dalton. Dalton was down on the floor.
That's true. Dalton was down
Sorry,
on
I
the
keep
floor.
distracting you. So I'm down on the floor.
Anyway,
and what?
Ken's in his desk, and he's leaning on his hand. He's about to fall asleep. But I noticed that he's got his phone kind of close to where he would see it. And so I send him a message, something to the effect of,
They've got large tracts of land. And he picks up his phone, and he's got this kind of quizzical look on his face because there's nothing happening that, I would generally send him a text message about. And he opens up the text message, and you can see him almost lose it on the floor. It was pretty funny.
Somebody actually said large tracts of land.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it was Lloyd.
Anyway, so there's a great piece in the Federalist this morning, and it's entitled "Wyoming is Ground Zero for Rhino's War Against Conservatives." And I encourage you to go check it out. It's a great piece. But let me just read you the opening paragraphs of it, and then I'm going to give you a perfect example of what they're talking about. And I quote from the Federalist: Wyoming bears all the hallmarks of a red state. Its executive offices and legislature are dominated by Republicans, and Donald Trump won it by more than 40 points in the last 3 presidential elections. But like many red states in America today, Wyoming's Republican rule is in many ways a mirage. It absolutely is. So-called Republican elected officials have gone out of their way to stifle and kill conservative priorities. The state's recently concluded budget session perfectly illustrates this problem. Despite Republicans possessing supermajorities in the House and the Senate, the House rejected 6 bills containing provisions long supported by election integrity activists and the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, which holds a governing majority in the chamber. According to local media, these measures would have prohibited the use of ballot drop boxes, restricted ballot harvesting, required random hand count audits, directed counties to use pen and paper ballots, expanded poll watching, and raised the bar for independent candidates to appear on the general election ballot. Non-budget related items, and we know this, it's the 2/3 thing. And then this paragraph, quote, "We're at a critical turning point in Wyoming politics where the insiders and the establishment class are very, very mad, and they want all of their power back," one prominent Wyoming conservative told the Federalist. We're really seeing a lot of tension right now between the executive branch, which is dominated by liberal Republicans, the Senate, which is dominated by liberal Republicans, and the House, which has a very slim majority of true Republicans. That tension appears to be spilling over into the Cowboy state's upcoming primary elections. And so the perfect... Yeah. Okay, so first, gentlemen, first question, is this the most important primary we've seen in a long time? We always hear that. This is the most important election in the history of elections. Is that true, first? And second, how specifically do you see the rhinos or the redcoats trying to take back control that they lost 2 years ago? So, and let's start with you, James.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually said this in a speech. I was asked to do a brief talk at Republican women's meeting several months ago, and I led it off with saying that 2026 for Sheridan County alone, but more importantly for our state as a whole, is every bit as important in Wyoming as 2024 was for the nation. I mean, I really believe that if we didn't get President Trump back in office, we would be on a downhill spiral that we would not recover from at this point. And I don't think it's as dramatic as that, but I think we're on that precipice where if we don't continue to make good conservative choices in our candidates and get people in there with a backbone that have no problem saying the word no.
That's a big, giant problem there.
I got a club no button to prove it.
There you go. But that's the issue is we have got to continue to push. We can't back off thinking, well, we've got slight control of the House now. And it isn't a power struggle for us. It's a let's represent the people the way government is supposed to represent the people.
No, so. I tend to agree with you. And, you know, if you've been listening to the program for a long time, well before the legislative session, I've been warning that do not underestimate the Democrats. Okay, so there's 6 Democrats in the House, there's 2 in the Senate. But if you can get a couple hundred people on the front steps of the Sheridan County Courthouse with holding signs with swastikas and advocating for Democrat positions, we got a major problem. Not that they're going to take over the governorship, though I would argue that the governor pretty much is a Democrat, though he's got that R at the end of his name. But I think the legislative session, at least in the House, you had 6 Democrats who were able to perhaps not dominate the whole session, certainly dominate a major part of it. And so I really think that you have a coalition being built between the Democrats and the liberal Republicans, and they are trying really, really hard to take back their power. So same questions to you, Agent 29, since you were down in the thick of it.
Well, if you go to kenpendergraph.com, which I can do with the touch of a button.
Yes, we know.
Do it again, Ken. Do it.
I will. But I put a letter on there, and it talks about exactly what we're talking about. And I think if you look at the beginning of this, it's time for Wyoming residents to decide. Do we want to be subjects dependent on government to provide for every aspect of our lives? Or shall we rein in an ever-growing bureaucracy that continually gnaws away at our wealth, our liberty, our rights, and our abilities to provide for ourselves and for our children for generations? The more wealth that the state secures, the more powerful it becomes. And then the question, are we to surrender to become more submissive subjects, or shall we remain independent, free citizens? The choice is ours so far. And I really, really believe that's where we're at right now.
I think you're right.
And when you listen to the arguments, for example, Sunbucks.
Oh, Lord.
So there was some money in the Sunbucks, and that money was not going to food. That money was going to more administration and bureaucracy, and we blocked it. And now they're telling us, everybody, that all you want to do is starve children, and
It's
the
how
rhetoric
they
is
always
only you
frame
can
it.
imagine.
Well, I
But
heard that about you.
Yeah.
so.
Well, some kids I do.
That's going to be the headline.
My
That's
neighbors,
it,
yeah.
right there. That's
I
the
can see it on
soundbite.
the cow pie right
My
now.
neighbor's kids. Why is it the government's job to feed our children? And
It's
if
not.
we allow ourselves to become dependent upon government for our food, we hand somebody a Visa card, and where do you get food? Well, the government sends me a card.
Yeah,
That we're training kids
yeah.
that this is how you get by.
Well, and that's emotional blackmail tactics that are used by the left constantly
All
to
the
try
time.
and tug at the heartstrings instead of looking at the logic of what our responsibility actually is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, so, and I think that you saw a concerted effort between those two groups, the Redcoats and the Democrats, and there's only two Democrats in the Senate, and quite frankly, the entire Senate was in it together. A caucus in the Senate is all of them go to a room and decide what they're going to vote on. There is no Republican caucus or Democrat caucus. It's all together. So there absolutely is a coalition that has been built between the liberal Republicans, the Redcoats, and the Democrats. And when we come back, we're going to go ahead and take another break. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you about what happened in Sweetwater County. Yeah, I know. The weather seems to be toying with us. 60 one day, 42 the next, and pretty soon, my friends, those 6s and 4s are going to turn into 3s and 2s. Though we all want to avoid it, that white stuff is coming, my friends, and you will be shoveling the walk in it. It's cold, it's unpleasant, and nobody likes to do it. But you could make it just a little bit more comfortable and prevent your feet from turning into a giant block of ice. In fact, you could keep them nice and warm and toasty, and your toes will never even know that they're outside. The rest of you may be frozen solid, but at least your feet won't be. To make all this happen, you just need a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country and you just can't take it anymore?
Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy State Politics is only going to get stronger. The Cowboy State Politics podcast at 400,000 downloads. Cowboy State Politics Live, 70,000 views every month. And of course, now the open range record. I can't tell you how much fun it is to be able to go to your own news site and run a show from it. But there's a couple of articles that I want to point out to you on there. The first one, and Mike Yen, if you're watching the Cow Pie, if you're watching, I want you to pay particular attention to this article. Go ahead and show up my screen, Ken. No, that's James.
No, close.
There we go. This is the article that everybody on the Wyoming left is freaking out about. Mike Yen has a giant post about how, oh, this is false fake news, how it's absolutely not true. Well, so the problem that he has with this article is it absolutely says they violated Rule 22.1. There's a big part of it that was mentioned, that was quoted by Jeremy Haraldson when he got up on the floor. Oh, look, there's the complaint procedure that they should have followed but didn't. Oh, and then there's an interview with Speaker of the House Chip Nyman. And then there's another part of that's the motion that was given by Carly Provenza that absolutely shows they violated Rule 22.1. And then there's the little excerpt from the Cow Pie. So this, my friends, is the article that Mike Yen is going on and on about incessantly, trying to say that we're lying. Well, you can read it for yourself. All of the documentation is in there, and there's no question about it. But one of the reasons why the left, and they're continually doing this, if you listen to the podcast from Saturday, I specifically called out the reporter, the yellow journalist from the Cow Pie, for absolutely mischaracterizing everything about that article, because they do. Most of what's on the Cow Pie, at least their political coverage anyway, is opinion, and it is wrapped up at, Ken, would you stop that? I realize you have control of the buttons, but anyway, so there is another piece on there on the open range record, and this one is entitled, Sweetwater County Censure 2 Votes on the Same Resolution. Now, there have been a number of Wyoming County GOP, or counties, whatever. I'm getting all tongue-tied here. See, that have attempted to censure one, my pal Rebecca Bextel, who did nothing wrong and broke no rules, and whatever feelers got hurt when she handed out campaign donations to conservative candidates. I'm too bad about your feelings. You know, you can hold your feelings in one hand and you can do something else in the other, and they probably smell the same. So down in Sweetwater County, they had a resolution to censure Representative Darren McCann and Representative Marlene Brady. And the entire thing, and I've listened to the audio from most of the debate. Most of it was how they felt, how it looked, the humanity of it, the children and the puppies, and it didn't have hardly anything to do with the facts. Because the truth is, had they focused on
puppies,
yes, that's how it always works, Ken. You know, you hate puppies, you hate children. You know, how dare you be a
Now, yeah,
conservative?
now I'm tracking again.
Wait, Ken, you'll vote to feed the puppies, though, right?
I'd feed the puppies before the neighbor's kids.
Oh my God.
Just making sure.
You're trying to get elected, Ken.
There you go.
So anyway, this article, while it runs through a lot of what happened, I mean, and it's fairly lengthy, as you can see when you go through it. So they debate this whole resolution, and it's stupid, and they rewrite the entire thing, and then there's a motion to set it back to what it was originally. So they spend like 2.5 hours debating this stupid thing and amending it and changing it. And then all of a sudden they say, well, we realize we argued over it for 2.5 hours, but we're going to go back to the original one.
Right.
And then they take a vote. The vote fails.
That's right.
The resolution failed. And then the chairperson, the person who was chairing the meeting, who was not the chairman, it's the person who was running the meeting was Elizabeth Bingham. The chairman of Sweetwater County is Tony Nemec, a complete disaster of a representative when he was a representative. So Elizabeth Bingham, then she says, oh, oops, I forgot to count some people. We have to re-vote. And then they re-vote, and the resolution passes. So, Mr. Sheridan County GOP.
Throw this in here real quick.
I don't think you're unmuted. There
Yeah,
you go.
I want to throw this in here real quick. Tony Nemec got replaced by whom?
By Marlene Brady.
And guess who they were attacking?
Marlene
I
Brady.
wonder how that works.
Weird. And you know what Marlene Brady did to beat him? She printed out his entire voting record and put it in a 3-ring binder. And she would go door to door. And when somebody brought something up, she'd say, no, that's not how Tony voted. Open it up. Here it is. And she would show it to him. And that's how she won. All right. So, Mr. GOP chairman, talk to me about how voting on resolutions work. If it fails, do you get to just make a decision and bring it back up and vote again? I mean, is that how we do it here in Sheridan?
No, absolutely not. And whether she miscounted or not, she took a complete vote. The vote was announced. The resolution did not pass. Therefore, guess what? It's a dead issue. It's dead on the floor. You cannot revote to get the results you want. I mean, if that's the way it works, then we can just do that in the legislature, right, Ken? We didn't get the result we want.
There is a process called a motion to reconsider.
Yep.
But it has to be done by the book.
Now, wait a minute. So, I may have to go back to the tape. I may have to go back to the tape and see if but no, there wasn't a motion to reconsider.
No, there wasn't. And that's the only way that can be brought back, and just saying, hey, we're going to vote on it again, because it's obvious they didn't get what they wanted. And this shouldn't have been a resolution to start with, because you had a committee from the House that actually came out and said there was no wrongdoing. You had nothing to go on. You had no right to try and censure Darren or Miss Brady. You had no right to do it at this point. I think people just want to hear themselves pontificate because they don't like these two individuals, but they're causing them a lot of reputational damage in doing this too. They're not thinking, they don't care. But no, to answer your question, it should have been a dead issue and not able to be voted on a second time under those circumstances.
Yeah. So you had that committee that said there was no wrongdoing, but you also had a quote unquote criminal investigation announced over the weekend by the sheriff's department down there on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then all of us started getting phone calls with them begging for us to say something. Of course, we don't have to say anything. We're under no compulsion to respond. So we don't. You've heard nothing about that. You've heard nothing coming back. There is no there, but we're going to play it for all it's worth, right?
Well, yeah, and you've got and the Sweetwater County GOP, it's pretty much dominated by redcoats. Elizabeth Bingham, I have listened to her in so many GOP meetings, and the only reason why she has an R at the end of her name is for appearances, because she's definitely not a conservative. And Elizabeth, by the way, if you want to come on this program and defend your stupid resolution, you are welcome to. I would welcome it. I'll give you an hour. No, I can't torture myself that much, but I'll give you an hour. I was going to say I'll give you 2, but
I'm not
going to do that.
Punctuated by commercial breaks.
David, we had something very similar happen because of an incident at a meeting we had in January. And
that's true.
And I won't go into the details of that meeting or what it was about, but we did have a motion made on the floor to form a committee.
Yeah, I'm the one that made it.
Yep, to look into a certain issue. And a lot of people were offended about the issue and actually got up and left the meeting. Well, we still had to take a vote based on who was still in attendance, regardless. And we had to go off of the numbers of that vote. And of course, the motion didn't pass.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Now, as I recall, no, that didn't happen. I was going to say, didn't we have an automatic revote? Didn't you just say, oops, I forgot to count some people?
No, because I actually had my wits about me. So,
Oh,
we can't do that. Now, if somebody would have made a motion to reconsider.
well, there you go. And here's a way, by the way, this is just my stupid parliamentary procedure brain. The way that works is if you have any sort of vote, and you'll often see, here's a good example. On the floor of the legislature, often you'll see people switch their vote right at the last second.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not saying this is all of them, but part of what's happening is somebody may see a vote going the way that going against what they want. And so one of them will stand up and say, to change their vote over to the other side. Reason for it is a motion to reconsider can only be made by a member of the prevailing side. Mm-hmm. So you would have had to vote on whichever side was going to win in order to bring it up for reconsideration. So in order for Elizabeth Bingham's stupid resolution to be valid or second vote, somebody would have had to stand up on the side that voted against the resolution to say, I move to reconsider.
Right.
Then it would have had to be seconded, and then they would vote on the motion to reconsider, and then they could vote again on the resolution. Mm-hmm. But none of that happened. And so really what you're seeing I've only seen a couple of news reports about the censure, and I think the reason why you haven't seen it in the Cowboy or in the Pravda on the Platte or in the Tribune Eagle is they all know that it's bull crap.
I'm curious, under Robert's rules, is that a debatable motion?
Motion to reconsider? Ooh, good question.
Yeah, 'cause
I don't know that it is.
I believe with Masons and anyway, getting in the weeds a little bit, there are a little bit of differences, and it seems like that might be one of them, but what do I know?
I honestly don't know the answer to that one, Ken, and that's something that now you got me curious.
Yeah.
I want to look into it, if it's a debatable or not.
So I don't know if it is or not.
We'll have to.
We'll look it up.
Pick it up one day.
David, let me add something to your point. One of the articles that I read about this meeting they had in Sweetwater was talking about Miss Brady, and it basically said, well, we wouldn't have pushed the resolution if she would have just apologized.
What did she have to apologize for?
And that was my thing, is how arrogant are you, sir, that you're
John
demanding
Kolb.
that you're demanding an apology from a woman who was exonerated of any wrongdoing, and
Yeah.
you were so adamant to get that apology to make it look like there was impropriety on her part that you're willing to then go ahead and try and censure her regardless.
Well, and I've actually got the audio of John Kolb, and he is such a whiny, liberal, red-coated Republican. You can hear him in the audio. Well, all I'm after is an apology. I just want an apology out of it. She didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly.
Literally, what happened on the floor is Rebecca walked up and handed her a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. Now, who knows if only Marlene knows if she knew that was a check or not. Mm-hmm. She says she didn't. So she gets handed a piece of paper, and then that's it. Okay, there we go. So the motion to reconsider is debatable. Jurassic Parliament. Okay. Anyway, so Marlene Brady and Darren McCann didn't do anything wrong. There was no laws violated. There were no rules violated. And frankly, I don't know, Ken, I don't know how often this happens to you in the legislature, but how often do people walk up and say, here's a piece of paper? I mean, it's like all the time, it seems like.
Ken, here.
I ain't falling for that. My wife went to the bank, and she had to cash a check and bring me some cash. And she sent me a text. She said, "There's an envelope with the cash in it on your desk." And I thought, "Oh crap!"
We better have an investigation.
Yeah, it wasn't my desk on the house floor, but that's the first thing that went through my mind. Another time, I had to go give another member a little bit of cash to pay him back for something. And I walk over there and I'm looking around, where are all the camera angles? Meet me outside. Got everybody paranoid.
Well, I had to, so during the session, I had to pay one of our journalists, just a paycheck. And I walk in, they're sitting in the gallery, and I lean over and I said, I'd give you your paycheck, but we'd have to have an investigation. And I mean, okay, we're making fun of it now, but honestly, there's plenty of material to make fun of them for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think now's a good time to just remind us of Darren McCann's words.
Oh boy,
'Cause he stood up on the House floor, and when this was basically all over, and everybody, okay, now we can forget about it. He said, no, he says, I'll never forget about it.
He won't be
says,
able to.
Forever, it's out there. Whenever anybody Googles my name, that's going to come up.
Yep.
And we had another member, Joe Webb, that got up, and he talked about the effect it had on his wife and his kids.
That was rough.
It makes you think about the little things that you do and how much of an impact they can have elsewhere. If you have any kind of a heart, and obviously the people that did this have no heart, no remorse. I actually got up on the House floor and suggested that perhaps some people might want to make an apology to somebody else. And, I'm directing that directly at Carly and Mike.
Yeah.
But of course, that's not going to happen.
No, there's no scruples with it. They will stop at nothing to sensationalize what they want to detract from what the actual job we have to get done is, and that is a sad, sad commentary.
So if you want to hear what Joe Webb had to say, Ken, go ahead and show my screen one more time. Not yours, mine. This article is about what Representative Joe Webb had to say on the floor of the House, and I'm pretty sure, So here's the video, and you can watch what he had to say. It's rough. It's not easy to listen to.
It is impactful.
Yeah. All right. So one more little item. We've got about 13 minutes left in the show, but I don't know that we can avoid this one. Marie Hamilton, also known as Marie Hamilton, but her actual name is April Marie Morgenroth.
I just talked to her last week, and she responded to Marie.
Oh, did she now?
Yes, she did.
I wonder why. So this piece, and the Cowboy had a piece on this too, but here's the long and the short of it. So a journalist who went by the name of Marie Hamilton, that's not her real name, by the way. Her real name is April Marie Morgenroth, her married name. So she was arrested on 9 counts of forgery and 1 count of perjury down in Platte County. And there is a long, long history behind the person known as Marie Hamilton. And it goes all the way back to Arizona in 2007 and 2008. Yeah, there's what, let's see if it'll go. Yeah. So in 2007 and 2008 in Arizona, she was also charged with forgery. Weird. How many movies have we seen of the criminals get a hold of the old forger and he says, I'm retired, but I'll come out of it. I'll come out of retirement for this one. But so it all boils down to a dispute she was having with an energy company down around Chunkwater, and it was over a wind project. And she submitted some documents to the state, and it was in a complaint to remove all of the Platte County commissioners. In there were 3 documents. And, you submit a complaint to the governor. Do you think that they're going to check your sources? I mean, that you should probably assume that's going to happen. So that's what happened. So the Attorney General's office starts going through all of this. And I think they were prompted by the energy company to say, hey, these documents are fraudulent. There was a letter in the complaint from a doctor, so they contacted the doctor who alleged to have wrote this letter, and he says, I didn't write that. And then the same held true for the other documents, and so she was charged with forgery.
So there is a presumption of innocence.
Yes.
I just want to
absolutely
throw that out there. She's been charged. She had been convicted prior.
Which had been expunged. That's another
similar thing. Yeah.
Interesting part of the story. But yeah, you're exactly right. And it's not in the piece, but what I wanted our journalists to write, which I don't micromanage our folks, but I wanted them to point out.
That's a switch.
Yeah, whatever. I can't micromanage you. Anyway, but arrest warrants always look bad. Always. And this one is no exception. But an arrest warrant is only an allegation, right? It's a we think you did something wrong. Now, I mean, there might be a lot of evidence to back it up, and in this case, I think that there probably is. But the interesting part about this is the name changes. Marie, the journalist known as Marie Hamilton, has been on this program, and part of what I think is part of the part I think is really interesting is through her entire journalistic career. Often she would write articles where she just made stuff up. There's an article from the Boulder Daily Camera. It's a paper down in Camera. And they printed a huge article, front page, about 9/11. Well, the paper found out that some of the quotations in the article were completely made up. And so the paper printed a 1,000-word retraction. Okay, that's not significant that a paper printed a retraction. Maybe it is in Wyoming because most of them don't do that. But, credible papers, they print retractions all the time. And usually it's just a couple lines. Hey, we reported this. That's incorrect. Here's the right answer. This one was 1,000 words long. That's longer than most op-eds that you see.
Yeah.
She worked for a paper down in Sydney, Nebraska. It was the Sydney Sun-Telegraph is what it was, is the name of the paper. And none of them wanted to go on the record. But the funny part of it is when I called him, the guy that answered the phone, he says, I bet you're calling about Marie Hamilton. And I hadn't even mentioned the name. And I was like, as a matter of fact, I am. But that's not her real name. And so we had a long conversation about her employment there, though it's not on, none of that is on the record. And she even printed an article about Agent 29 and misquoted him. And, so
That never happens.
Never happens. But long history, it's a fascinating story, and you should go read the article because, I think the whole thing is just enthralling.
Yeah, it's a very interesting case, and it's like Ken said, absolutely due process.
Sure.
She is entitled to that. One of the pitfalls that we see investigations, especially nowadays, take is it seems like the justice system has said, well, the burden of proof is on you to prove you're innocent.
Yeah, that's not how our Constitution
and
works.
the truth is the burden of proof is on them to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that she's actually guilty. They need to follow the investigation to where it leads and not have a preconceived notion of where they want the investigation to go.
Yes.
And that's the big difference. So innocent, guilty, don't know, but it's an incredibly intriguing story, especially with the background.
Well, and actually the investigation led to more background on it because if you follow her, and you can read this in the story, but from the beginning, it's a journalism student at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes, I have a master's degree. And by the way, we couldn't confirm whether or not she has these degrees. There was an associate's degree that we could confirm. The rest of them we could not.
Yeah.
Not saying she doesn't have them, just saying we couldn't find the documents. So it goes from bachelor's degree to master's degree to I have a PhD in journalism. And now she says she's studying for a law degree at the University of Wyoming. Well, the investigator, he called the University of Wyoming and they said, there's nobody under any of these names that has ever registered for classes at the university. And so the story has changed all the way through here.
I just can't help but think about how valuable a PhD is. Did you know Julie Jarvis has a PhD?
As a matter of fact, I do. But, a friend of ours, Tom Kelly, he says that a PhD only stands for piled higher and deeper. All right, one more piece from the Open Range Record, and then I'll let you go for this morning. So a while ago, we printed an op-ed. Oh, there she is, Gail Simmons. We printed an op-ed entitled, Who is Gail Simmons Really? And the central point in it was that there was an article printed by the Cowboy that made a crazy statement, and let me read it to you. Quote, Simmons attended the Naval Supply Corps School, formerly located in Athens, Georgia, where she was among some of the first women to graduate from the Naval Academy. Okay, so the Navy Supply School, it is not the Naval Academy, nor is the Naval Academy in Athens, Georgia.
Did she go to the supply room at the Naval Academy?
Maybe she did work there.
I don't know.
But part of the original piece that was published by one of our journalists, Don Marcourt, was please correct this thing. You've said that you went to the Naval Academy, and there's no indication
Just
that you
make
ever
some
did.
clarification.
Yeah, just clarify it. Well, Gail Simmons wrote another op-ed and, of course, glossed over this point. And so read this one. It's Don Marquardt's, I guess, rebuttal to the rebuttal. But, Gail Simmons is one of those folks that she writes for the Cowboy, spews a whole bunch of stuff, and hardly any of it's correct.
Does it take a motion to rebut a rebuttal?
It might.
And is it debatable?
It might be debatable.
Yep.
It's true. We may need a motion, perhaps one to reconsider. Well, that'll about do it for today's installment of the broadcast today. Tomorrow, we'll be back in the original Cowboy State Politics studio, where Ken is on some sort of other program. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a good afternoon, my friends.